This expensive mistake that I made was during my first attempt at leaving the mining industry. Back in the 2010s, the company I was working for at the time offered as part of the enterprise agreement bargain to sell its workforce shares for half the price. At the time, the shares were worth about $1. So we could buy up to 1,000 shares at 50 cents a pop. Now, this was a great deal. And I did. I bought the 1,000 shares, paid my $500, and this continued on until I left the company 4 years later. Every year I was allowed to buy another 1,000 shares. So after these 4 years, I had 4,000 shares, and it cost me around about $2,500. Not a bad deal. I'd also acquired some other shares, one in Telstra, a telco company in Australia that went public, and I don't know how I got them, but they offered me some shares, and there was some other just shares sort of floating around that landed in my lap that I didn't actually have to pay much for or anything. They were just given to me. So I was starting to build a portfolio. So anybody that's trying to build wealth knows that a share portfolio is something that is worthwhile having a look at and trying to get into the market. So I thought I was doing pretty good. I had a few shares here and a few shares there and a lot into the company Thiess that I worked for. Everything was great. And as I said, I left that company after 4 years. They were offering redundancies, and my redundancy package was around about $120,000. And I was sick of working there, and I thought, I'll take that. That's a good payout. I'll take 120 grand. So I had my payout of 120 grand, and I wanted to buy a franchise. Now, the first one that came to my mind was McDonald's, until I found out that you needed at least $500,000 for McDonald's to even accept your application. Didn't have $500,000, so no McDonald's. Then I thought of the other big ones. I looked at KFC. They were around about 300,000, and then there was Subway. They were the three big food ones in Australia at the time. I couldn't afford any of them. So a bloke down the road had a Fastaway van, and I thought I'll go and see him and see what the deal is with Fastaway. Now, if you don't know what Fastaway is, it's like a FedEx or a UPS. So I go down and have a talk to this guy, and I'm like, mate, I'm looking at buying a franchise. Can you give me some details? And he sold it to me. He's like, best decision I ever made. I've got that much work that I'm buying a second van and I'm hiring someone to drive it for me because I can't keep up. And I asked him how much it cost, and he said, oh, the area I got was pretty cheap. It was like $80,000. Not bad. Take it. So I went home, looked up online, found out where they were and, a little bit of information. Ring them up, go down and see them and start to talk about becoming a franchisee for Fastaway. And that's about all the research that I did. I showed up to this meeting with nothing more than pretty well much 120 grand in my back pocket. And they showed me the areas that they had available for sale. They showed me the vans that I would need and how much they were. And the figures looked all right. It was going to cost me about $110,000. Now I had $120,000, so I was like, I can do this. This will be great. As soon as I decided that I was going to do this, I started to dream big. I was taking what the old mate had said down the road of how busy he was and that he was buying another van and hiring somebody else. And I started to think, that's going to be me. I'm going to own a fleet of vans and I'm going to buy more territories and get people to come and work for me. And eventually I'm just going to be like the king of franchises. I'm going to own the whole lot. And I'm going to sit back on my veranda and watch all the money roll in. I don't have to do anything. This is going to be great. Well, as I'm making a video on this, I guess you can already tell now that it didn't go so great. Something that I didn't take into account was the area that I bought. It was a rural area, so there was a lot of farmlands and there was some industrial complexes in this area, but it was spread out over such a wide area. Now, if anybody knows anything about Australia, once you get out of the cities, everything's far away. Nothing's close to each other anyway. So that was the first hurdle that I encountered. Second hurdle was a lot of this stuff actually didn't fit into my van. Nobody told me this, that the van that I bought wouldn't be any good, because I was thinking that, you just buy little parcels, like people, I guess now today, you buy them off Amazon, like they're just boxes. Yeah, not when you're delivering to farms and to factories. They generally want big shit. Not many of them are just sending letters by courier. So that was my first uh-oh. Some other things that I didn't really take into account was, again, insurance. Never really thought about that. I didn't really count or cost in the fuel allowance, the distances that I had to travel and how much that was going to cost me. I didn't realize that I had to buy the little electronic notepad thing. That was a few $1,000s there. I didn't realize that, especially with car insurance, I just thought it'd be like car insurance, but no, because it's a business, the insurance is different, it costs more. And then after a little while, talking to old mate down the road, and I told him where my area was, and he kind of laughed at me and he said, yeah, there's a reason why you got that area. Nobody wants it. Costing out for that area just doesn't make it a viable business. Nobody wants it because it costs too much and you won't make any profit. So I was a bit down on myself there, but I thought to myself, hey, it's yours, make the best of it, see what you can do with it. Plus, you've invested over 100 grand into this, so you kind of need to make it work. Well, after doing that for 6 months, I had not made a cent. I was actually going backwards. So after 6 months, I was losing money. I was selling everything that I owned. I had to sell my car and, as I said, my shares. And I was still not making any money, still losing money. It got so bad that I actually had to go to Woolies, which is a supermarket in Australia, and start stacking shelves at night time, just so I could keep the lights on at home and keep a bit of food in my belly. That's how bad these were going. But I tried to stick it out. I kept going. Thought I'll just ride this out until it comes good. Until eventually, after about 9 months, my dad come to me and he's like, mate, what are you doing? Got to cut your losses. Enough is enough. You're working 2 jobs and you're losing money. Like, you can't keep doing this. You're going to end up with nothing. I'm like, yeah, I already have nothing. So with my dad's words ringing in my ear, I stuck it out for a few more weeks and it just got too much. I just couldn't do it anymore. So I went back to Fastaway and I gave the franchise back. They wouldn't pay me for it. They said, you can return it, you can sign it back over to us, but we're not buying it back. So that was my breakout from mining. That was my first attempt of leaving the mining industry. I thought that I was out for good. I'd never go back, but I'm going to strike it out. I even remember having the conversation with the HR lady when I was signing my redundancy papers. Like, that's me, I'm done, I'm finished mining, this is brilliant. To less than a year later, being back in the mines because I failed and I lost all my money and I could not do anything else. The only option was for me to go back to mining. There's a little bit of embarrassment there when I showed back up into the mines, because a lot of people knew me because I'd been in it for 10 years and I made a lot of friends, and they were like, what are you doing back mining? Well, this is what happened. I lost all the money. So I got no choice. I have to be a miner again. And, there was a lot of ridicule, a lot of laughter, and quite a lot of embarrassment in that. But I was, at the same time, I was rather proud of myself, like, not for how it ended, but that I did everything I possibly could to make it work. I was even prepared to go and stack shelves at the local supermarket to keep that dream alive of not having going back to mining, because that's the last thing that I wanted to do. But the real kicker, the thing that stings me the most, is that those Thief shares today would be worth about $88,000. Something that I spent $2,500 on could have just been sitting there, like money you didn't even know about, going up in value. So that was like another $85,000 loss. I tell you, if you don't laugh, you will cry at some of these mistakes that I've made during my life.